back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to do a very exciting video. I have a book to review, which is the second one in a series, and then also I have a little extract from the author reading from this series for you guys to get you a little teaser. And then the author has also really kindly agreed to do a giveaway for the first two books, paperback, internationally. So listen through the video to hear details of how you enter for the giveaway, and let's get started. So the book I'm going to be reviewing today is Light Fighters, which is the second one in the Star Children saga following Moon Deeds. Moon Deeds I read a couple years ago as part of the SPFBO. This one is the second one, Light Fighters, and you'll notice there's a bit of a difference in size. The first one is big, but the second one is huge. So it did take me a little while to get around to reading this one, but I'm really glad I did get to it and I very much enjoyed it. Now I will say straight off the bat, this book is a lot darker than the first. The first one has some dark moments, but this one, oh, it's dark. It's not for the faint-hearted in any way. There's definite trigger warnings for kidnapping, abuse, rape. Lots of really nasty things happen in this story. So it is certainly not one that I would recommend for young adults. I would say this is definitely an adult series. Now, I did get some information from the author that this is actually a big epic sort of spanning series. I'm not sure exactly how many books off the top of my head it's going to be, but quite a few. So we have a fair way to go. And this one kind of starts to introduce the wider universe a bit more. The first book was largely about the two main characters getting to the moon and kind of how they're going to or what they're going to do once they get there. This one is very much based on the moon, and a lot of stuff goes wrong. A lot of things don't go to plan. A lot of things test our two main characters, Cassidy and Tor. They are kind of known as the Star Children in certain circles. Lots of different races in the galaxy are kind of relying on them, but they don't really know what their powers are quite yet. They don't really understand the full extent of them. They're starting to unlock a little bit more of their potential in this book and kind of understand a little bit more about what they can do, but they really don't know how to utilize their power in a way that is super helpful yet. So this story sort of explores them not only facing real hardships, but also explores the way that they have to deal with kind of unlocking their new powers and discovering how and why and when to use them. So as I mentioned before, this story takes place on the moon. It actually picks up right after the ending of the last one, so it's kind of an immediate pickup. And as I say, the characters are kind of in a really bad situation. They're separated from each other. Cassidy in particular is put in some really nasty, horrible situations that she doesn't know how to get out of, and Tor is on the hunt for her, trying to help her. So it's a pretty bad start, and it doesn't really get any better as time goes on. For a while, there are some pretty nasty things that go on for both of them, but particularly Cassidy. I really felt for her. She went through it in this. And the other problem is that the two of them are a little bit naive generally to kind of the ways of the moon. They grew up on Earth, and now that they're on the moon, this is just a whole other ballgame in terms of the politics, in terms of the groups of people. They really don't quite understand what they've let themselves in for at first, and so it's kind of a journey of discovery for them, trying to uncover not only their potential and escaping the situations they're in, but also who works for who, how can they build up their power, their friendship groups, their supporters on the moon. So I will say that this particular book, although it is long, I think it's about 800 pages, yeah, around 800 pages, it did feel like it was quite gripping when I was reading it. There is always action happening. It doesn't feel like there's many sort of slow points throughout this. There's a lot of gripping moments, and because it is focusing on some really dark moments, they are quite compelling to get you to keep reading, of course. One of the other nice things about this one in particular is that we start to see further afield in the galaxy. We see other types of people who are visiting the moon, making their livelihoods on the moon, kind of coming and going a little bit more. And I felt like this particular one started to open up that universe a little more, and it started to feel like the twins were kind of at the center of things, but only just starting on their journey, and there is a whole lot more to come and to see. There are different groups of people that we see in visions, in dreams, and it just hints that there's a wider universe out there that they have to discover and they have to find their way to. So there's a big destiny awaiting them, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that unfolds. As I said, Cassidy's story in this one, honestly, it can only be called completely tragic. It is horrible, and she really has to fight for herself because it seems from her point of view that no one is fighting for her. It really is as though she's almost been abandoned by a lot of the people that she loves. She's left a lot of people alone on Earth, and she's on the moon, and it's not going well. So her story is really a personal battle and struggle, not only to learn and develop, but also just to survive, to be able to keep going when things are dire, when things are tragic and horrible and brutal. And she really has to kind of dig really, really deep to become a survivor and to become someone who can fight her way out. And even when things start looking up, they also flip back down again into more horrible situations. So she is constantly on this roller coaster throughout the book of one nasty thing to the next, to the next. And unfortunately, it really pushes her into a dark place in her mind. She has to go through a lot of personal struggles, not only with depression and post-traumatic stress, but she also has to deal with just trying to live day to day in a normal way after the events that have happened to her, which are so far from normal. So I think that although this is brutal, and a lot of people have said in reviews that I've seen that it's too brutal, I don't know if it is, because I think these things do happen to people, maybe not on the moon, but they do generally happen, and it's horrible to read about them because we don't want to admit the fact that these terrible things go on, but they do. People do have to go through things like this occasionally, and when they come out the other side, they are changed, they are broken, or they are having to heal in ways that they never thought they'd have to, from things they never expected to go through. And I think that the author does a really good job of really hammering home the brutality, the sadness, but also the beginning of healing. That's certainly here. I will say that Tor, who is the other main character, is a little harder for me to get behind generally. I think personally I don't have as much of a connection to him, although I could sympathise greatly for his plight to try and free and find his sister. He didn't know where she was, and it was a constant battle for him to try and uncover where she is and what's going on, and also to rally people around him and try and get support for them. So I do like him, but I definitely don't feel like I have as much of a connection to him personally or emotionally when I'm reading about him. He also feels a little bit more closed off generally as a character. I think it's one of the things he's supposed to be struggling with, is that he doesn't always let his emotions out in a way that's easy to understand. But he does start to open up a little more in this particular story, which I liked seeing. And he also starts to uncover his power a bit more, which generally kind of opens him up to a bit more vulnerability. So I definitely liked seeing that as well. The overall battle for the moon becomes a really big part of the story. We see the political situation on the moon. There is food scarcity and rationing. There are various different groups of people who live on the moon and kind of control their own areas of it. So it's a little bit like a divided up space where no one quite trusts one another, and there's different people who you hope you can trust, but you don't know. There might be traitors. It is a very suspicious living style, I suppose, where people are constantly not sure if they are fully in control or fully trustworthy with the people around them. And we are following particularly a group called the Light Fighters, hence the name of the book, which is a group of people that Tor has kind of banded together over the course of the story. There is a lot of shifting power, and the energy and the way that the moon feels, it just feels like there's a lot of tension constantly there, and everyone is kind of highly strung about what might happen next. I actually really enjoyed the fact that this surprised me in some of the directions that it went, but I will say that maybe it went a little far for me. I didn't expect everything, which was nice, but I also feel like there are so many twists and turns that sometimes I felt a little bit overwhelmed whilst reading it, and I felt like, wow, this is a lot going on. So just bear that in mind. It is a roller coaster of a book. And I do say that this is a long one, so possibly some of it could have been cut down slightly, but I did enjoy it. I didn't find myself struggling to pick it up or read it. So that's a win. In the end, I am very keen to see where book 3 goes and to continue on with this series. It is a sci-fi series that definitely has lots of elements of fantasy too. There is magic, and yet we are set in space. So it's a lot happening all at once, and as I say, it is emotional, hard-hitting, and a constant rollercoaster ride. I ended up giving it a 4 stars, and I really like this series. So we are going to be doing a giveaway. As I say, the author has kindly agreed to give away not only the second book, but also the first, in paperback anywhere in the world. So if you would like to enter, it is open internationally. It will be open for 1 week from the day that this video goes up. So I'll put the date that it closes on the screen and the time. So you'll have to enter before then. But please enter by writing a comment below saying why you are excited to read the series, and I will choose a winner. So if you're not following me already on Twitter, then my Twitter handle is KittyGBooks. So please follow me there, and I will announce it in the comments below. And you should see this symbol when I have commented telling you are the winner. If it's not that symbol, it's not me and it is a bot. So definitely be careful of making sure that you are the right winner. I will never ask anyone to send any money or anything like that. I will just contact you to get your address so that I can pass it on to the author so that they can ship out the books to you. Thank you all so much for watching, and here is the author now to tell you a little bit more about the series.
Hi, I'm Palmer Pickering. Thank you, Kitty, for your fantabulous video blog and for this opportunity to connect with your viewers. Hi, viewers. Kitty and I met through the SFFBO 2019 Indie Fantasy Contest, where she was the judge for my entry, Moondeeds, which placed as a semifinalist and was bested by a book called The Sword of Kagan by M.L. Wang, who took away the grand prize that year with her wonderful book. I've just released a Moondeeds sequel, Light Fighters. These are the first 2 books of an adult science fantasy series called the Star Children Saga. Today, I will focus on the long arc of the series, which you will learn more about in Light Fighters, and will be the subject of my reading today. The series takes place during a time in the near future when Earth is being invaded by an alien-backed army. The army is called the Tegs, and they are backed by an alien race called the Cephs, and many of the Teg leadership are mixed-race Cephs and Earthlanders. The only defense against the Cephs' alien technology is magic. Cassidy and Tor, our twin protagonists, are children of shamans, and they must unlock their magic to help fight against the invading armies and the growing dystopia of the New World Order. In Moondeeds, Cassidy and Tor wonder about the family mythology that says that they are the fabled star children, twins born every 1,000 years to reconnect with the star people who are said to be our ancestors and live on a lost planet across the galaxy. In Light Fighters, we learn that the star people really do exist, and in fact, they are desperately seeking the star children most urgently because their sun, Utapta, is getting too hot, and their planet, Turia, is burning up and being consumed by volcanic eruptions, and eventually will become uninhabitable. They need the star children to open up the pathways of light so that they can flee to the planets where their descendants have settled. The big problem is that one of the portals that connected the planets every millennium was destroyed during the previous conjunction, and no one knows how to open the pathways of light without it. But if anyone can do it, it should be the Star Children. The portals are large crystal globes. The largest one sits on the Star People's planet, Turia, and the globe is called Father Heart of Sky. There are 3 smaller portal globes, or at least there were, and they sit on other inhabited planets. These globes are called Hearts of Sky, one of which was destroyed, as I mentioned, on the planet Iliad during an invasion by, you guessed it, the Cephs. I've been writing the story of the Star People as a side project and decided to include the story in serial form in the prologues of the books, starting with Light Fighters, and I will be reading the 3rd chapter of the Light Fighters prologue now. First, I will catch you up briefly on what you would have learned already. This short chapter is from the perspective of Laris, who is the eldest keeper of the conscious scrolls, which contain the history and knowledge of their people. Laris is married to Rokana, who is the acting sacred mother of the Sisters of the Glimmering Sight, whose role it is to contact the Star Children through clairvoyance, dreams, and song, and guide them along the pathways of light in order to find Turia. Laris and Rokana have a daughter named Avala, and Avala is married to Azan, who is of the Zura tribe. In this chapter, we find Laris at the peak of the Ageless Mountains, where Father Heart of Sky sits next to the star temple of the Sisters of the Glimmering Sight. This chapter is called Drums. Laris stood at the black stone gate atop the ageless mountains, watching the mountain path where his daughter Avila's husband Azan was climbing its final ascent above the ash cloud layer. Laris's bones stiffened as Azan's helmet reflected a flash of gold and crimson from a glancing ray of Utapta. Azan wore the golden helm as the reigning leader of the Zura warriors of Mount Sejir, which meant he was here on official business. The Zura protected the totem from threats down below, the molten lava that erupted violently, bursting through the brittle rock to spew red fountains and clouds of ash into the skies. The Zura cleared the villages from the path of the blood of Turia. Azan ranged the countryside, carrying the dowsing rod and scouring the landscape, searching for the next eruption in time to evacuate the locals. He was correct 8 times out of 10, so the villagers solemnly packed up when Azan detected stirrings down below. Still, families from the villages where the ground did not erupt, where the stone hovels stood empty, those men and women bore down on him with stares of suspicion and contempt when he walked through the cave dwellings where the refugees gathered to live out their lives. Azan had driven them from their homes, and for no good reason. The dragging ground had not attacked their homes, yet they were living in the honeycombed cave cities nonetheless. Being Zora Master and Dowser was not a light duty, and Azan's broad shoulders stooped from his burdensome weight. The ageless mountains had been born of the flowing lava, but had long since died. There was no threat of eruption here. His son was not coming to evict him from the Star Temple. Laris knew why Azan was here. Laris had just recently reread the passage in the Conscious Scrolls that told of this. The Zura were concerned that the Star Children had not yet arrived. Even the assurances of the Sisters of the Glimmering Sight, who vowed the Star Children were still alive, could not rest the hearts of the people. Every Turian knew what had happened the previous Kalpa, 1,000 fires ago when the Star Children had not arrived and had been unable to unite the totem. They knew what the sisters had told them of that time, which the Keeper scribes had recorded in the Conscious Scrolls, that a planet named Iliad, the primary portal planet for the Star Children to connect with the Turians, had been invaded by Cephs. The descendants of the warlike Vardna and its heart of sky had been destroyed. Iliad, a planet with seers advanced enough that they could connect with Turia's Sisters of the Glimmering Sight, was still ravaged by the war the Cephs' atrocity had unleashed, plunging the once bright civilization into an extended dark age. The war was a struggle for power among the totem's sons and daughters, the self tearing at its own body in a fit of insanity, unaware that the eyes it was gouging out were its own. The Ilian seers who had fled from the marauding Cephs had begged the Turian sisters for aid, but Father Heart of Sky did not awaken. There had been no way for the Turians to send help. Azan approached the gate, removing his helm and pressing his forehead against his father's in the tribal greeting. Laris was touched that even on Zura business, Azan did not forget their familial ties. Laris had not objected when Avila had told him of her desire to wed Azan. It was customary for Sisters of the Glimmering Sight to wed keepers of the Conscious Scrolls. Zura normally wed weavers or goldsmiths, or rarely the daughter of a keeper and sister before the daughter unveiled her sight, but it was unheard of for Zura to marry full sisters. But Laris had read the scrolls. He knew the past, which the keepers did their best to let most Turians forget. How, during the last Kalpa, after the Star Children had not arrived, the Zura took up arms against the keepers and the sisters, wresting control of Father Heart of Sky from them, and casting doubt on their powers and the ancient ways. The Zura started questioning the faith and even existence of Star Children at all, depicting those who gazed into Father Heart of Sky as delusional witches intent on bringing Turia to ruin. The Vardna had streamed up from the south and conducted extensive raids where they ransacked the cave dwellings of the Sikat and broke into the smaller temples, raping sisters and killing keepers. It had been only through magic the sisters wielded that the sisters and keepers had been able to regain control and protect Father Heart of Sky from those who wanted to destroy it. Laris reflected sadly that the Turians were not so different from their descendants, that the traits displayed by the marauding Cephs on Iliad were hauntingly similar to those of their tribal ancestors. After generations of subjecting the people to the sisters' strict obedience and hiding the truth of the conscious scrolls from all but fellow keepers, things had gradually loosened up. Openness and freedom reigned on Turia once again. Knowledge and truth, equality and self-determination had been allowed to return. Laris did not want to see the cycle of conflict and alienation repeat itself. The Turian race might not survive it this time. He knew the Zura must not view the keepers and sisters as the enemy, or all hope was lost. He looked into Azan's eyes, waiting for the words he knew would come. "We want to invoke the drums." The words dropped heavily from Azan's mouth. He knew it was a challenge to the seer's authority. Laris's heart fell, but he kept his expression open and gentle. "Of course," Laris said, patting his son-in-law kindly on the shoulder. "People want to take their lives into their own hands. Putting hand to drum makes men feel in control. It will strengthen their spirits. Let it be so." Laris knew he was speaking sacrilege and defying the tenets of the keepers. He was eldest keeper. What he was sanctioning would either save Turia or lead to its doom, and would either strengthen his claim as eldest keeper or send him into exile deep in the bowels of the catacombs. And he did not want to think about what it would do to his relationship with his wife and daughters and the other sisters of the Glimmering Sight, whom he had just formally discredited. Azan, no doubt, had the same worries regarding Avila, but he had sworn his life to the Zura before all else. "Take me to the drum circle," Laris said. "I will bless the sounding." He took a deep breath and held his son-in-law's gaze as Azan's large, flame-red eyes shifted uneasily. Laris shrugged and smiled gently. He let his formal tone drop and spoke to him as a man. "Don't look so surprised, Azan." Laris released a dry chuckle that more resembled a rasping cough. He grasped his son-in-law's forearm. "I haven't lost my mind. We will face the barren father heart of sky together, or we will die apart. Let us go." Together, they descended the long trail from the peak of the Ageless Mountains, and by day's end made it to the vast rocky plain where the Zura warriors made camp. Utapta sat upon the horizon behind the clouds, which glowed red like a blacksmith's fire. The sun finally sank, the embers of daylight slowly dying as orange reflections faded to ash. At the camp center was an ancient sounding pit, its rounded canyon walls carved with a whirling spiral pattern made to lift the sound of the drums to the skies, where it would travel across the atmosphere to the next drum circle, and their response would travel back in the ancient form of tribal communication. The legends of ancient drummers, as recorded in the conscious scrolls, talked of how the drummer's song could ride the spirals of the galaxy and travel to the dispersed Turian tribes where they had settled on distant planets. None of the keepers really believed that the legends were true. They were ancient myths. Sound did not travel across galaxies. But Laris felt that, during this time of uncertainty, belief was stronger than truth. Belief made men strong and must be nurtured, no matter what its form, so long as it would not destroy them. And drums were not fire, and they were not swords. Drums would not send the population burning and bleeding to their deaths. One arm of the spiral wall was cut into stairs marked with lanterns that sent long shadows into the stone pit. Laris descended, followed by Azan. Down below, arranged in concentric circles, were rows of kneeling men with wood and hide drums grasped between bare legs. The Zura drummers wore the traditional woven garments that only covered their private parts, exposing their dark skin, which glowed with the golden nimbus of the Turians. Steel helmets, armored tunics, and white crystalline swords lay neatly by their sides, the Zura ready to cast aside the drums in favor of weapons if need be. Expectant faces clouded over with confusion as they spotted the eldest keeper of the conscious scrolls entering their sacred space. Azan's firm look held the men in check as he followed Laris through the rows of drummers until they stood in the center, forcing the master drummer to step aside with a dark scowl. Laris turned in a tight circle and met the eyes of the angry and suspicious men. Raising his hands, the billowing sleeves of his white robe falling around his elbows, Laris spoke loudly to the gathering. "I give you the blessing of the Keeper. May the drummer's song reach the Star Children and bring them home." The men fidgeted nervously, not sure what to make of this violation of tradition. Their eyes shifted to Azan, who was doing an honorable job of keeping his face stony and impenetrable. But Laris could feel his unease. Only because Laris was the father of Avala did Azan stand by his side. They both knew it was too late to turn back. Laris had lit the flame of destiny. Let it burn where it may. If the star children did not come, they would all burn to their deaths anyway. Laris turned in a circle and intoned the ancient call of the drummers with a booming voice. Io rata yerlo. He lowered his arms, and the hands of the drummers fell in unison on the drumheads, the thundering sound shaking Laris in his bones. The master drummer reclaimed the center and led the waves of drummers in a pulsating rhythm that stirred Laris's blood, flooding him with an ecstatic rush that took him by surprise. Laris wondered suddenly if the ancient legends of the drummer's song held some unknown mystery, some vein of truth. Laris looked up and prayed to the stars, their bright lights of hope hidden behind the ash-filled sky. Let the star children hear them. Let Golden Star and Flying Star come home. Light Fighters. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much to Palmer for giving us that little intro into the series. It is such an exciting series, I think you'll all agree, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Don't forget to enter the giveaway, and thank you all so much for watching. I will see you again in another video very soon. Bye everyone!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.